Water.
Okay. Y'all ready? We're ready? Everyone's ready? Okay. All right. Hello. I will now call to order the meeting of the Mount View Altos Union High School District Board of Trustees at 7:01 p.m. First order is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Next, we will have roll call, and roll call says that 4 of the 5 board members are present in this room, and the 5th one, Phil Fillet, is on Zoom. So all 5 board members are present in one way or another. So next, I will ask for a motion to approve the agenda. Thank you, Sanjay. Second. I second. And Debbie seconds to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. By the way, I will state after the fact roll call, our student members are not hanging out with us anymore. It's and we're past that stage, so we're not doing that. Okay. Next, we have resolutions and recognitions. Need my other copy for that. Okay, Dr. Meyer, would you like to read that?
Yes, thank you. We bring forward with a recommendation for approval, a resolution addressing gun violence. And briefly, I will speak to some of the points within. Whereas gun violence is an urgent, complex, and multifaceted problem requiring evidence-based, multifaceted solutions, whereas gun violence is now the #1 cause of death for children and teenagers, surpassing car accidents, and is a public health crisis. Whereas mass shootings like the horrific attack that killed 19 children and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, or the murder of 10 people at a grocery store in Buffalo, New York the week prior, are all too prevalent in the United States. Whereas there have been 214 shootings defined by gun violence archives as one in which at least 4 people were shot within the first 145 days of the year. And whereas access to guns can turn a crisis into a life-ending tragedy for those involved and a life-altering incident for families and communities. Whereas 75% of school shooters use a gun found in the home, and a gun in the home makes it 300% more likely that someone living there will lose their life. And whereas the Mountain View Los Altos High School District and the Board of Education have taken action throughout recent years to support education, legislation, and research to reduce gun violence within our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education strongly supports recommitting to advocacy, highlighting the need for proactive measures to ensure safe schools and communities, an assault weapon ban, development and implementation of stricter controls governing the sale of guns, including background checks, transfer, possession, manufacturing, and distribution of all firearms, dangerous weapons, and ammunition, as well as support for further education and research.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. This is a rather solemn resolution, and before we vote on the resolution, may I call your attention to the one about the recent horrific attacks and take a moment of silence in memory of those people. Do we have a motion and or comments before a motion?
I move to approve resolution number 21/58. Resolution addressing gun violence.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Debbie and second by Fiona.
Debbie, your mic isn't on for future reference.
So is there further comment on the motion or the resolution? The public? Okay. Did you fill out a form or
You can go ahead and speak.
you can go ahead and speak and then fill out your form after the fact. Please just tell us your name.
Okay, yep. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Hello, my name is Renee Rashid. I'm a MVLA parent and I'm speaking on behalf of Los Altos for racial equity. Can you hear me okay with the mask? Okay, okay, yeah. Los Altos for Racial Equity, or LAIR. LAIR is very glad that MVLA is talking about gun violence and safety after the horrific events happening across the country these past few weeks, but especially at Uvalde. The nightmare for those parents who lost their innocent children to gun violence is something no parent should have to go through. So putting prevention of gun violence as a priority is a welcome step. And Los Altos City Council has already passed the safe storage ordinance, which has the potential to stop school shootings because minors would not have easy access to their parents' guns. But inevitably, many conversations around preventing gun violence in schools turns to the issue of SROs, school resource officers, and how having more police on campus would make school campuses safer. But if we look at actual data, we find that to actually be false. LAIR has sent the MVLA board a letter detailing the sources for this research. So I hope that all of you take the time to read our letter and review the references that we've provided. To summarize for the audience, a study out of Hamline University examined every K-12 shooting in the past 40 years. The study found that there were 3 times as many people killed when there was an armed officer on the scene. While this finds correlation, but not necessarily causation, this should give us enough pause on the strategy on having SROs on school grounds. I feel infuriated when I think of the 19 police officers that were on campus for an hour, not doing anything to save the children locked inside the classrooms. So when we look for ways to prevent gun violence in our schools, I hope we consider ways in which students and faculty are empowered to report on dangerous and threatening statements, where there is mental health support for our students, and where there is a climate of support and interventional strategies available at the schools. Thank you for your time. Sorry for.
Thank you. Thank you, Renee. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this topic? And there's a motion on the floor to pass this resolution. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. There was all 5, so there's no point in asking for names. Right. Thank you. Thank you all. And we will be addressing many of these issues, as we said, we resolved in the last paragraph. Let's move on to happier things. We have a report, 4.1, MVLA Summer Construction Projects Update. Mike, would you please take it away?
Sure, yeah, I'm just, let me get the screen share up and so everyone can see.
I just want to thank Mike and his team who responded to the request for summer work, and we look forward to seeing a very fruitful summer. And when we return some new buildings will be in place. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you. You bet. Well, unlike this time last summer, the report was we finished some construction, and really the big summer news was embarking on new projects and new construction. This summer is really just a continuation of the projects that we are in the midst of constructing. Some have a shorter horizon before we're completed, some a full year. So that's what you see. So it's not a lot of new stuff. It's mostly just updates on what's going on. So with that, we'll start with freestyle, probably because of proximity to where we're currently seated. Expected timeline of late fall 2022. So not by the time school starts, but definitely by the end of the first semester, likely in the end of somewhere in the second quarter. You see some pictures. We're just going to do a lot of photos tonight. You can see the plywood, the walls going up, roofing up, still a lot of scaffolding. The canopy steel has been erected. They're working on the shear walls, and the supports have to do with earthquake safety and making sure walls flex the way they're supposed to, and other walls don't flex the way they're supposed to for that structural integrity. We'll see some PG&E work, installation of EV charging stations, and weatherization will occur over the summer. And so you see a few more. This is like if you're standing on the roof of the district office above the kitchen, looking south. There's the Mountain View softball field in the distance, but you can see the work going on there. And then just
the EV charging station.
So the EV charging stations, we're including infrastructure to add more stations along the front row of parking here in the student parking lot that students of freestyle or staff or other folks could access.
Same
Yeah.
company?
Yes.
Will it be, what kind of charger will it be?
I can get confirmation for you. I think most of them are like the current level 2 ones we have. Maybe one of those fast direct charging stations like Los Altos has. A lot of it has to do with capacity, and the electrical panels that are there. I won't take up too much this time, but we started out with a single dual port charging station, and then we added more in 26, and now it's going to be used all the time.
That's the trend in every whole parking lot needs to have eventually, right?
Yeah. So this was forward thinking, knowing. Using some grant money, barrier quality management to add the stations later, but do the infrastructure work now while the ground is torn up. This last photo freestyle is just the inside of one of the rooms. This is either animation or the film room. I think this is film. High ceilings, slanted roofs. You just get a sense of what will be inside, but still pretty rough, right? But this is the progress to date. So that's freestyle, and reports from Bill Pierce and Leo and other teachers as they see this, because they're adjacent in the modular classrooms we put back. They're very excited to see this come to fruition. I know they had their kind of end of the year stuff exhibition. The exhibition was offsite, but their graduation recently, and they could kind of, parents and students could see what was literally going up nearby where they are. Mountain View High School Auxiliary Gym, also nearby, similar estimated date which it would be completed by. So we're looking after the fall sports season. So we're targeting winter sports season and then on, of course, for many, many years to come. You see very large building. It's a big box, but it's way prettier than just a box, right? And so intentionally done. You can see here, I can't point. Well, I guess I can do it with my cursor here. Yeah, this smaller roof is athletic director office and also restrooms on the exterior. They were intentionally accessible from the exterior, so that could serve both the pool. We have a lot of pool use outside of school hours. It could serve the tennis courts, auxiliary gym. So utilizing a lot of, or accessible to a lot of groups in that space. So a lot going on in there. Again, closer up shot. This is from the south side looking back at those offices. And then if you get a chance to go inside, again, you see some of the drywall up and those beams inside, and they're getting ready to work on HVAC. Plumbing is underway, expect to be complete over the summer, and then they get on with the interior finishes and the flooring and all the paint job and whatnot. So we're moving forward with that. Yeah. So the tennis courts, all 7 courts is part of this project. So that is in line with that timeline. So late fall 2022. So we're going to miss, as we've always said, the fall tennis season, but they will be back when this project is turned over to us.
We can't add any more courts. Is that currently we had 7?
7 is what we had. So it's status quo, same numbers we had before. Just a slightly different configuration. Instead of 5 and 2, it'll be 3 and 4. Which is standard for almost every high school. Some have less. It's the desired amount for competitions with singles and doubles play. While Altos just has had a luxury. I don't know. I'm looking at how long ago that was created. 12 is unheard of, at least in my experience, right? And I do peek when I go to other high schools or look at aerial views of how many courts they have, always comparing.
And so there's just no room to have another court at this moment.
Not in that area. Yep. So that's the auxiliary gym. We'll move on, staying with Mountain View, but even larger construction projects. This is the Student Services Building. You can see it anytime you're driving around Mountain View High School or walking on it. Many of us just walked back from the adult ed graduation and had to walk around the construction fencing. Again, this is slated for late spring, early summer 2023. So in line to move in and be of use when we start that 23-24 school year. You can see the large crane, the steel's up. The structural steel, is in process. That will continue. Then they'll install the roof deck after that. And so, we're still a ways out, but what you don't see in pictures is all the underground work that went on and all the rebar and the moment frames and all that stuff that you look down in there. Oh my gosh, it's some say over-engineered, but it's engineered to DSA standards. That those are amazingly safe buildings. So. You see that going on. You see the concrete pads and foundation. Again, these are large 2-story buildings that will be fantastic for students and staff, office spaces, a student union, cafeteria, 3 classrooms upstairs, a larger room for ASB downstairs, conference rooms and whatnot. So a lot of activity going on there. We're excited about that. And we'll move on to Los Altos High School. One project going on there at the moment, but again, student services building is very large and complex. Again, similar timeline towards the end of this upcoming school year. And you can see here, the structural steel installation is near completion. Again, another 2-story building to house student union, ASB classroom upstairs, a lot of staff offices and space, conference rooms, college and career center. So a lot going on in these buildings. Again, you kind of get a sense there of all that rebar on the lower left, the type of infrastructure, foundation, footings they put in place. They pour that in with concrete to secure these buildings. So when we think back to getting it approved by DSA, it's things like that they're looking at, and we have to engineer for those standards. And then you see more kind of a shot looking up and get excited. And, the sites have continued to put up. We appreciate their patience, but put up with a lot of construction, working around that. And it'll go on the summer when our kids go off and staff go off to the variety of things. We'll keep working forward on these things. We are on the construction side, we're a little reluctant to put dates on anything, because we think we're coming out of a pandemic, but we're still experiencing pain of the supply chain issues, getting steel, getting other products that then cause delays in this. So we were pushing hard like we always do, but the team wanted to make sure I mentioned, we're still working through some of those challenges. So these timelines are still rough. We're committed to them. We push them. Schedule is paramount, right? But we are dependent upon what's going on worldwide with material shortage and what's available.
Have they updated that project schedule?
The massive cash flow.
Yes, includes that.
I believe so, because we also did our recent bond sale last week. So they updated. I can get you guys a copy of that.
That'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. We had a facilities committee meeting just this morning with Catherine and Phil and referenced that. And I'll see if it was part of that packet. And if not, I'll make sure you guys get your own copy.
That'd be great.
And also they've reallocated those funds that we were going to use for the 2 classrooms at Los Altos over into the other category of the current bond sale. Remember, there was 20.
Right.
The bond sale, the 20 versus the 2. So all the money and everything's been reallocated to that. So it's being all rearranged.
So let us know anytime you want to tour, you want to check it out. If I'm available, our Jim Kramer team, they always have some on site. So they're always excited to show it off.
question though on that. So when I was visiting the classrooms a few months ago, one of the things that some of the teachers were complaining about were that in the new classrooms that there weren't enough power outlets on each of the walls. Is that been amended now? Do we make sure that there's at least 2 power outlets on each wall?
So I've heard similar or the same feedback, right? And buildings are done, it's hard to go in afterwards and, and really rectify that. To a degree, yes. I mean, we've looked at several options and I can talk with all the specifics later, portable charging, portable power sources. All those have come with challenges. And so power strips or surge protectors with long cords is basically the best solution we've come up with right now. You know, short of everyone remembering to charge their devices and bring it fully charged and be ready to go for, you know, the day. So,
but moving forward, all future classrooms?
Yeah, we're taking that consideration. I mean, most of the all the projects we're on now, right? I mean, there's only a handful of classrooms in the student services building, so it's really more office spaces. And making sure there's adjacent outlets to where desks would go. And, you know, those, it's more fixed furniture and less flexibility with where you move things. As we go through into the modernization projects, certainly, you know, we'll definitely keep that in mind and make sure there's outlets placed appropriately.
Yeah, I mean, even in offices, you need multiple outlets on every wall because, you know, everything needs to be charged these days. You got phones, you got laptops, you got desktops, you got monitors. So,
we take all that input and are mindful that every additional outlet is additional costs and additional wiring and cabling and conduit and pulling to that. And so that's, you know, one of the factors that enters into is that value engineering and literally cost benefit analysis of, you know, pulling that wire and how much is getting used and things of that nature. So it all gets factored into the equation. And some of it is actually reducing. You know, when I was teaching, which is probably eons ago, everything had its own power source, right? You had a monitor, you had a desktop, you had a printer, you had, you know, I don't know, other devices. Right now, every teacher has a laptop, there's a docking station. So there's one power cord for that monitor that's a docking station. So you plug your laptop into that, that's your power source. So it's actually kind of gone the other way into less power sources being plugged in at a time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how value engineering is being done, but I think you know, and it's common to have an outlet at least on every wall, and maybe multiple outlets on every wall. So it's pretty common. Even in new home construction, you see that everywhere. People are doing that just because that's what's needed, even in people's personal homes. I don't know.
Technology.
Okay.
So we move on from that then. Thank you, Mike, so much for that report. Is there any board member reports?
I just have one. I spent a couple hours yesterday and again today with Anna Eshu observing her student advisory board presentations, and she's got, I sent everybody the list of the climate team attendees. I don't have the list for the healthcare attendees. So today was healthcare, yesterday was climate, and MVLA is very well represented. The chair of the climate team is Caitlin Devaney from MVLA. Her name just flew out of my head. Our champion for youth is Sydney Fung, right? Sydney was on the healthcare side today. Multiple other names attributed to our district. Climate change. Yeah. Caitlin's a senior, and so Sydney, right?
And Sydney's a rising senior.
Okay. So climate was what they broke out into 8 subcommittees, and each of those subcommittees picked something that they could work on and change and recommend to Anna. They have budgets, they have pros and cons, who they'll have to convince, who's just going to come along. They've done a political analysis of it, everything from how to get plastics out of the ocean to partnering with Tanzania to reduce carbon footprint and learn from what Tanzania has been doing. Today, healthcare was all encompassing. It was everything from mental health to LGBTQ needs to one of the groups suggested investing in MRI technologies to further prevent cancer and deal with cancer diagnoses. Anyway, just all that to say, our students represented us very well. It's an incredible crew. Every single student on, she's got 150 students on this advisory board, and all of them had a speaking role across the 2 days. It was pretty incredible.
Amazing. May I go ahead and say that some of us just went to, as Mike mentioned, the adult school graduation. And for those of you that don't know much about the adult school, we graduated GEDs, diplomas, high school diploma, CNAs, certified nursing assistants, and MAs, which are medical assistants. And the student speeches were heartwarming, and the way that the students had to persevere, have needed to persevere as an adult to go back to school or continue their education with family needs and COVID and so on, just amazing. And they've done it, and they're all have aspirations. They all have aspirations to do other things, higher education, or go into certain careers. We're going to have a lot of more nurses and medical people, because of quite a few of them are interested in that area. So that was great. All right, next we will have, and no other board member wants to say anything? No. Okay, then we will move on, not Phil. Okay, we'll move on to a student of the month, and I understand that Suzanne Mello will be introducing our student.
Thank you for having us. So the Mountain View Los Altos Adult Transition Program is in our 20th year. We were previously the post-senior program until about 3 years ago, but we're proud to recognize Juan Huesca as our June 2022 Student of the Month. Juan, an adult transition student, has been a positive leader and role model in his final year of 3 in the program. He was a quiet and shy young man when he started the ATP. That quickly changed in his second semester of the program when he began a paid student internship in the cafes at Google. Juan demonstrated that he is a hard worker who always attempts any task to the best of his ability. He was on track to be hired, but then the COVID pandemic started. Academic tasks have always been challenging for Juan, and his family had limited experience with technology, so the switch to Zoom and virtual classes did not come easily. Juan persevered through the pandemic with a smile, and he truly made large gains in using a computer for many tasks that will continue to help him in his adult life. He learned to use Gmail, the calendar, Google Classroom, and other applications to participate in class and life. His favorite activity on Zoom was cooking, because he liked to watch the YouTube video making the food, and then he would cook in his kitchen as his teacher demonstrated in their kitchen. Hosting my own cooking show wasn't the plan, but it was really great. Juan is aging out of the ATP on June 8th, and he will be missed. Juan has a full-time job with full benefits at State Street Market in Los Altos. Medical, dental, vision, even 401k matching. When we asked Juan what he would do or what he would like to spend his first paycheck on, he told the chef that he was going to pay the rent for his parents. Juan, the ATP program is so proud of the young man that you've become.
Well, Juan, we have a special certificate for you, and we would like to take a picture with you, and we would like your family to come too. So we'll stand in front of the sign.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Without the mask.
With masks?
No, they wanted to take their masks off for the photo. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Congratulations. So, when Suzanne mentioned that Juan learned so much about computers and so on too, that was brought up at the adult school graduation too, that all of our students in the entire district and all our educators themselves and other staff had a crash course in ed tech or tech ed, however you want to say it, during the Zoom times. And so everyone is more up on all those things and qualified to do a lot of things, not even in their field of interest, because almost everything needs computers nowadays. And they really did get us through that pandemic. Okay, Superintendent, Dr. Meyer, would you like to give a report?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for mentioning the adult education graduation. It was so uplifting, and I wish I had pictures. I do not, but thanks also to the team for attending, all of you. It was just wonderful. Julie Vo did an amazing job in her inaugural graduation. So congratulations to Julie. So to start out, we're having just a season of celebration and joy. And so you'll see here Freestyle celebrating their graduation through their program. And we're continuing to, through MVLA, really emphasize our academic excellence, the importance of equity across the district, and student engagement. So some things that have been happening since our last board meeting, this is really the season. There's something every evening. And so much of it is uplifting, but some of it is very serious and in response to very serious issues. So we recently had a substance abuse presentation. It was the second one, actually third, that we've had. It started at Los Altos High School PTSA. And then we had a presentation at our last board meeting. And then this week, actually, we had our police officers, our lieutenant and a sergeant from Mountain View Police Department. And they presented on and answer quite a few questions on the topic. And I highly recommend it if you were not able to see it. It is on our website. And so you can see that recording. And so thank you to them for that partnership.
Dr. Meyer, do you have an approximate number of attendees? Do you get
We-
just a ballpark?
About 125.
Great. That's
Yes.
Thanks.
So in attendance, and this time of
We're on
year,
Zoom. Yeah,
we're
on-
competing.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it was very well attended,
Yeah.
definitely. All right, so moving forward, we also celebrated an action that the board took at our last board meeting, the passing of the ethnic studies curricular pilot first year implementation. And we got together and Julie Yick gathered everyone together via Zoom. And, you know, if you look real close, we're a little tired, but we're very excited. but don't look too close because we're very happy. And so just thank you to Julie and the team, and thank you to the board for supporting these efforts as we continue to develop and support this course. We also, here's a better picture, Freestyle celebrated at Alta Vista, and this is our class of 2022. And so they're just such a tight-knit group. I think they must stay friends for the rest of their lives, but it's just a joy to see all of the teachers work together with our Freestyle Academy. And we look forward to more graduations at the end of this week, tomorrow as well. And here's a snapshot into the yearbooks. If you haven't had a chance to look at them, they're just so much better than they were when I was in school. And so they just get better each year. And our students are excellent writers and photographers. And so much of this is done by our students. So here you can see Mountain View High School's, some of the photos from their yearbook. And then also here, Los Altos High School, and certainly some of the accomplishments that they've had. We recently sent out an MVLA magazine that we had so many student awards and accolades that we now have a new tradition of an accolade edition. So we're going to do that at the next year as well. But you can see here students recognized for all of their hard work. There's always something to get them involved in and keep them involved. Here also you can see Alta Vista had their Spirit Day, and you may see some familiar faces. And I don't know, I'm looking at this, I don't even know if I can quite tell the theme, but I see farm animals and twins perhaps, but you can see they had fun. And then on the same topic of Alta Vista, I want to thank the Los Altos town crier for recognizing Bill Pierce. They surprised him. They called his family, and you can see here his son saying, "My dad is truly a family man with his blood relatives as well as his chosen professional relatives, and his school was a home away from home." And this article, if you haven't read it, is just lovely, and even lovelier that they surprised him. So we're very grateful for that partnership as well. So congratulations to Bill. And graduations, I've had this in the last few, but it's never, it's always important just to keep it front of mind. So we look forward to both of our graduations, and Ms. Satterwhite is here. I just want to recognize, she's gonna have a busy night tomorrow night. So she didn't have to be, but she is. And that's kind of something I say a lot about when. And then we've got Alta Vista, which will be next week, 4:30, and Middle College will have 2 ceremonies now that we've added that and doubled the program. So you can see they really have their unique identities, and so they want to celebrate separately. And then lastly, this was something that it was kind of a labor of love here, and it's a great way. We've had some real tough times and some sad things, and so I want to give a shout out to not only Spartan Paws, but these are Los Alton and Mountain View pups that were found wearing mortarboards coincidentally. And so just wanted to thank everyone for the great work as we prepare to celebrate our students. No, we certainly are going to continue to. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer.
Los Altos High School, the graduation parking, because I'm going to be going to the Los Altos one. Is there any?
Yeah, so talk to me afterwards, I'll tell you the special handshake.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's good to know the right person.
I just kind of want to know what time you wanted to there, but usually we meet in the gym. Yeah, so we start with the kids at 5:15, we walk at 6, so please be there by that time, we'll leave you behind. Wait, no, if you want to there like
5:15?
5:45.
5:45.
She's honing her director skills right here as we speak. And we may even have like a secret lift the construction and park underground. Okay. All right. So we really look forward to it. As I always say, Pomp and Circumstance is my favorite song. So thank you.
Well, I have to say that Dr. Meyer's superintendent reports are always informative, but also the lighthearted part about them, and we all have fun at school. It's not all drudgery. Learning is not drudgery. Teaching is not drudgery. Yet we're in one big happy community and we have fun. So thank you. Communications, is there anyone from CSEA or DTA present that would like to speak? No. All right. So we have public comment on non-agendized items, and I do see that Jen wanted to speak today.
Good evening.
I'm Jen Dennebeim. I'm the Los Altos High School PTSA president, and I'm here tonight on behalf of myself and Cindy Zinn, who will be the incoming PTSA president for Mountain View High School. At the May 9th board meeting, you recognized the incredible work that David Bell and Kim Sheehan did to create and maintain the e-list system and the servers. Many of you commented on how invaluable they've been to keep you and other families informed about sports events, PTA events, boosters, and other opportunities happening on campus. Unfortunately, there was no board discussion about how the district will replace the e-list system, even though improving communications is one of your goals. Right now, our websites and all of our back to school materials emphasize joining an e-list to stay informed. Those materials are being finalized right now and need to be finalized within the next 2 weeks. What happens when the e-list system goes away? How will our families find out about summer sports, conditioning, tryouts, volunteer opportunities, and band camp? Without the e-list, every school group will be left to their own devices. There will be searching for ways to find email groups. There will be multiple email groups created, and it's most likely going to lead to a lot of confusion. The weekly principal newsletter is likely to get much lengthier, with groups needing to announce events and solicit volunteers, making it less likely that people will actually read the important information it contains. Catapult is not an option for us for many reasons. Too many people are not receiving the emails. Families cannot opt into or out of specific topics or specific groups. They are either all in or all out of Catapult. The PTSA and other groups cannot push out emails ourselves and must rely on a busy administrative office to send them out on our behalf. And finally, future families and those community members who wish to stay involved, who are not a part of ARIES or not in the ARIES system, are not going to receive Catapult. And there's no way to get them in there, as far as from what I understand. So what's the solution? Cindy Zinn and I have been frantically trying to find an e-list replacement. However, we are not IT experts, and finding a district-wide replacement for the e-list system that has been in place for 20 years is essential for our back-to-school communications. This is really an urgent situation. We can be good partners on finding a solution and implementing it, but we don't have the capacity or the expertise to do it alone. We all know an informed community is an engaged community, and it would be a big risk to start the new school year with no plan in place. We urge you to make finding an e-list replacement a priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Oh, by the way, of course, this being a non-agendized item, we can simply say thank you. And you may or may not be communicated to about these sort of things in the future, but not in the context of this meeting. All right, so next we move on to consolidated motion, items 1 through 15, 10-1 through 10-15. Does anyone want to pull items from the consent agenda?
I move to approve consolidated motion items 10.1 through 10.15.
So I guess you don't want to move, pull anything. Does anyone have a second to that?
Sure. Second.
Second, Debbie moves and Fiona seconds, approving the consolidated motion items 1 through 15. Is there any comment? Okay, well, I have one. I'm going to call for the vote in a minute, but I am so pleased that this version doesn't show it, the shortened agenda, but the expanded version of the agenda explains in quite a bit of detail all the consolidated motion items, quite a bit of detail, pages for some of the things like the change orders. But one innovation that the Facilities Committee has done this year for us is put ratify if it's something that they've basically already done anyway, but we are being informed that something has happened in facilities and what it was. And then also for our benefit and the public's, they have put whether it's within budget or not. So that even when we're reviewing them, instead of going, oh, I don't know, going, oh, I get it, what they're trying to say is happening, but now I also understand that it's in budget, and I also understand that it's basically already done. So it makes it easier for us to go over the things and also know what's going on, but also go ahead and approve things. So I appreciate that, Mike, and tell your construction people that.
As long as we're commenting, I want to comment on the calendar for 23-24 because, 23-24, because that's quite a miracle to everybody in the room who got a calendar done a full year ahead. 1,000 thank yous. Our partner districts will adore all of you. And thank you for doing that.
Yeah, we're trying to do a few things like that is so people aren't surprised and we aren't kind of pressured at the end to, when are you going to tell us, when are you going to tell us? So everybody knows. That's great. So it's communication, as Jen said, at all levels is always good. And to know specific details, and then you don't have to go hunting for them. So thank you. So now I will call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the consolidated motion as stated by Debbie, you said, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That was a 5-0 vote. We did not pull any items, so we don't have an 11. So now we're to 12, business action. First reading and public hearing for the LCAP and annual review report. Let's have a public hearing first. No, we just want to do the report first reading. First reading, and then I'll do the public, open the public hearing. Okay. Is there anybody that wants to speak to it? There's a presentation, is there? Yes, okay.
I would like to volunteer myself.
Like to thank Terry Fott, who has been working on the LCAP all year, and will certainly give us an overview through and a first reading. Thank you.
And then I am passing out just a small update. We fixed a few budget numbers, and then that kind of shifted a few pieces as well.
Okay.
But I'll also review that.
Nice.
Presentation.
Very nice.
Okay. So, good evening. It's an honor to be here to present Mountain View Los Altos High School District's local control and accountability plan.
Terry, can I ask you really quick, is this one on the website now?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. The local control and accountability plan is a tool that helps educational agencies like ourselves not only set our goals, but support them with actions, metrics, and ensure our funding is being used correctly. So today in this first reading, I want to do a brief overview of the purpose of the LCAP, take a look at our goals, actions, and budget that is also addressed in the document that is online as well as in your hands. Clarify a couple updated revisions that occurred as well, and then comments from our educational partners, and then next steps. So first of all, just for those who would like to have a brief overview of what the LCAP is, it is, like I said, a tool, and the purpose of the tool is to support districts like ourselves and all across California and across our nation to set 3-year goals. 3-year goals that is based off of partner feedback and data. Those goals then turn into an action plan of how we plan to accomplish those goals within 3 years. We then have to show, well, how are you going to support this action? What types of funding sources and materials and work do you need to put behind those actions? And lastly, how are you showing that you're moving the needle on your goals and what's the metrics? So if that wasn't awesome enough of what a plan should really be about and helping a district or organization accomplish its goals and know how it's accomplishing those goals, what's great about the LCAP is that it really is focused on all students And there's particular parts of the LCAP that checks in to make sure that our low income, our English learners, and our foster youth are being supported with whatever the extra resources they may need, as they may not have some of the resources or abilities like language fluency as an example from some others. Lastly, it focuses on the outcomes of our students. What's the most important? How are our students doing? And lastly, it ensures that we're not diluting our efforts, but that we're really hyper-focused with what's taking place with all of our other state plans and required plans, from the SIPSAs to the WASC goals, the California educational priorities, et cetera. So last year, we approved of our 4 main goals that we're going to support for the next 3 years: academic excellence for all, lifelong learners, stakeholder communication and engagement, and safety and wellness. And again, it was our responsibility to make sure that we are aligning our efforts and our goals with what this entire district is working on, and that includes our sites and their WASC goals. This is a quick snapshot, but I won't go into it for too much detail, but it really does emphasize that we're all focused on wellness. We're focused on equity. We're focused on academic excellence. We're focused on culture, communication, and I feel like I'm missing a piece there. Did I say wellness? Lifelong learners. So it's really great when you're able to go to the sites and see their work and know that what we're doing is supporting them, and what they're doing is aligned with us, and our resources are being focused together to support our students in the end. So to go into how our particular LCAP that we set forward last year. 4 main goals. First of all, academic excellence, which is really focusing on how are we supporting our students in their classes, in their academics, on their tests, standardized tests, AP tests, etc. We set forth some agenda items, or action items, I mean, and that is how are we accomplishing excellence. And this not only briefly illustrates the action item, but it also shows our funding source and where we're at that 1-year mark with the funding. Technology was really revolving around the Chromebooks and the hotspots, and giving students access to education and learning 24/7. And that is our continual refreshment fund that again includes our Chromebooks and our hotspots. Inclusive classrooms is focusing on our co-teaching. We planned on there being around 9 or 10 co-teachers for this year, and we ended with 15 co-teachers this year. And so we see a little bit of a budget increase for that. Credit recovery options are summer school, the adult ed program, some of our Alta option B, Edgenuity. What we planned on that was not budgeted in there was a summer math academy that didn't take place last summer, 2021, just with post-pandemic challenges. Exam fees, course team collaboration, just with some of the challenges of coming back to from the pandemic and the challenges with ongoing absences and COVID. We didn't see as many course teams and departments take retreats as we planned, but we appreciate their focus on the classroom and really making sure that their students and we're getting supported. Intervention services, these are our support classes like supervised study with David Marroquin and Jacob Lorraine and Lisa Battle, classes that provides that tier 2 intervention and bringing in tutors and homework help as an example. This also includes applications like Elevation, Lexia Power Up, Reading with Relevance, and Alex. These are all ed tech applications that focuses on raising the reading, the literacy level of students. And a lot of those applications are embedded into the support classes. So they're not just getting homework help, but at the same time, they're also raising their skills by using these applications that I just mentioned. Culturally relevant education, this went towards materials for the classroom that are culturally diverse. The 18,000 was in regarding instructional material and textbooks that came from authors of different cultures and ethnicities and orientations. CTE was a mixture between our FTE for our staffing for CTE, but this year CTAG, our CTE Innovation Grant, also had an increase, and which wasn't planned in the beginning, and so this showed an increase of our instructional materials that we're able to support these classes. The Newcomer Academy, the 56,000 was the advisory period that the Mountain View High School teachers supported their EL students. The rest of it was budgeted for Los Altos, but that was an error on my part with planning the Newcomer Academy happening one year too early for both sites. And then our at-risk counselors are Jacob Loreen and David Mutterking. So pretty close funding with some small shifts to what we planned. And our actions were really targeting not only providing quality education with the tools and the resources, but also the diversity in the education to make sure that it's well-rounded excellence for all students to see themselves and reach their true potential. Goal 2 was around our partnerships with our families and our middle school districts, as well as the communication and engagement that we support. And what we saw with this year was continued Zoom meetings to be able to support safety protocols. And so what we planned as a lot of get-togethers that included materials and setups and foods, et cetera, ended up being a lesser cost on our part to keep on Zoom. What we also appreciated was that our attendance and our turnout stayed strong. So we appreciated our families and all that they do for us. Our Latinx engagement that went to peak. That also went with some of our Latinx award nights that took place just a few weeks ago, as well as some of our CSACE meetings where we had our families and our students do some celebration of their work. Our outreach communication that include applications like Catapult, S'more, I'm forgetting one of them right now, but our different applications at which we use to thought exchange, to reach out to our families and learn from them, hear from them, as well as keep them informed. For our safety and wellness, our action items were ambitious, and we were proud to see we are also continuing to support in this area. Professional learning and SEL. This came from not only professional development for our staff, but the applications that they use to support their students, like I'm Sparked, Care Concern EAP, and Care Solace. Our clinical counselors, our intake coordinators that supports the referrals and the mental health of our students. Interventions for our English learners were supported by therapists and social workers that not only helped them one-on-one, but also did push and support into the classes. Gender support plan, very proud, and thank you board for the approval of our gender identity board policy. Just a small fee that we were supported by our legal and reading through our documents and making sure that they were compliant. And I think that's a huge win for our students on this campus. And rolling up the sleeves and still work to do in areas. Inclusion activities. This was an area that if everything went back to non-COVID days, then we would do stuff like Challenge Day and Linked Crew and Camp Everytown, which are big ticket price items, and they're big impact items as well, with the inclusivity and the culture that the solidarity that those activities create. But we really had to reel it back for our safety protocols.
So Terry, can I ask you on that? So the plan expenditures for next year, would it be the same as this year, because possibly we can do those things?
Correct.
Okay.
So each of these planned expenditures were planned for each year over the 3 years.
The same amount each year?
The same amount over each of the 3 years. Correct. Terry, is Mountain View likely to switch to Challenge Day rather than, because they haven't done Camp Everytown in a long time? They didn't do Camp Everytown, but before pandemic, they did a similar to Challenge Day but a different organization. I'm not remembering what it was.
Okay. I just know Los Altos has had so much success with that I didn't know if Mountain View wanted to copy.
Yeah. That's gone. That's-
But they had a similar challenge day experience where it was during the day and sophomores got pulled out of the classroom.
I think that Lynn would like to chime in here too.
Hi, we've been working with Marty and they are looking at doing challenge day next year. So Kristen and Marty are working together to try to.
Great,
make that work.
great.
That will happen.
Great update, thank you. So lastly, our final goal, which is lifelong learners, is really supporting our staff.
Sorry,
And-
if I could just get clarification on Debbie's question. So the last year, that's what you have planned for all 3 years, you said, right?
That is correct.
But on the estimated actual expenditures,
That was
so
just,
are you gonna is there an adjustment being made? Or,
So as an example for inclusion activities, what we planned for this year, we're really reeled back because of safety protocols. We're still going to plan those activities, the challenge days, et cetera, which is roughly budgeted as 200,000. So we're not going to add on the additional 200,000 to make up for it.
rolls over.
so whatever's not used is gonna be rolled over.
So the same thing with our engagement. You know, we did not spend as much as we planned due to everything being on Zoom, but we're still going to plan these activities in person for next year. So we're going to go forward with the planned what in-person cost and keep that actual budget, not adjust it because we didn't spend as much.
But the same is true in the opposite direction. If you overspent this year, you're not going to up the budget for that category. You're going to see, for instance, community outreach specialists, you're going to still have the 255 as the next year one.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So what we'll see with some of our expenditures planned from last year when it comes to FTEs and salaries is due to the negotiation salary increase. There was, which is the community outreach specialist as a prime example. That's something that we'll have to then adjust for the following year. And that was not a part of this LCAP document, was what does the following year look like in its expenditures. And I don't know, Mike, if that's part of your plan or.
Well, I mean, all the expenditures somewhere included in the budget, right? Not as specified like it is in the LCAP. But, you know, just keep in mind, and I think Terry mentioned this, you know, the LCAP is designed to, here's local money, but here's how you're planning to spend it and how do you actually spend it, right? So what this is they call it like the annual update, which gets very confusing in an LCAP that spans multiple years, which year is the update. But this was like, hey, this is what we're planning to spend this year. And now that we're towards the end of it, how much did we actually spend? And when there's a variance, let's explain. And there's rationales here about all that. Yeah.
It's not a budget issue though.
Correct. No. Yeah. Yeah. It's not like categorical money or grant money that, oh, it's restricted and spend on this, you know, like the community engagement. We just move forward and say, hey, and we adjust accordingly. Yeah.
Covered why some of this was bringing it down. I mean, you showed the impact and as to why we didn't need the expenditures that we predicted.
And in the document that I just gave you, I highlighted that in yellow as, yep, absolutely.
Did you give us in there, I can't remember, a total?
That comes towards the, I didn't give it in here, but it comes towards
The end of the
page
other one.
90 or 80 in the data tables. So lifelong learners supporting our staff so that they're keeping up on best practices and what they're able to provide for our students. And we stayed pretty in line with what we planned in our actions for our professional learning, our anti-bias, anti-racism work that we did with Courageous Conversations, as well as Bay Area Pedagogy that worked with both sites, and in particular with Los Altos on their focus work of equitable grading. Our number 12 SPED education collaboration that went to our co-teachers that have annual training with what they call the SEDS and the JEDs, or the special education teachers and the general education teachers that are co-partners, and helping them work together to refine their synchronism within the classroom. So in the end, for our goal 4, we not only saw some really strong work with professional learning for all of our staff, but also was very close to our budgeted plan. So
what did our community have to say about this? Well, first of all, we reached out in a variety of ways. Like I said, we did with our plan number 3, we use a survey like, I keep forgetting the name of it, Thought Exchange, to get feedback from all of our community members that are not on, including those that are not on a committee. And these are some examples of committees and the various educational partners that are members on these committees. And in our meetings throughout the year, we're constantly reflecting on the LCAP goals or a focus on professional learning or wellness or safety, academic excellence, and constantly giving feedback and direction and talking about funding and funding sources to support our actions that we've set forth. In a couple of our diverse community meetings, and that included our Family Partnership Council that has administrators and teachers and classified and parents all attending, as well as our DLAC meeting that has a variety of parents and staff as well. Just a few of the following comments that were made, and these were trends that were pulled out of some surveys as well as these 2 meetings. A lot of excitement around the ELD program that will be starting up next year. Some appreciation of what they're seeing as culturally relevant education in the materials that their students are using, from, again, authors to examples. A lot of excitement around ethnic studies and appreciation for this course and what it's going to bring to our students to learn about each other as well as see themselves in the class. But then also communication that we need to have continued support for our staff on implicit bias. CTE, some folks saying, "Oh, I'm just hearing about this. Tell me a little bit more about that." It's why it's a goal for ours to expand it. And thank you to the foundation, who also is supporting a CTE program specialist that is coming in and to move that needle and bringing in this very important program that allows our students to get engaged in career-oriented work-based learning classes. A lot of communication about still that partner district helping the transition of our 9th graders, of our 8th graders into 9th graders. Not only social emotionally of like, boom, I'm on a huge campus and I've all of a sudden dropped my confidence, but also picking up from where they left off academically. So there's not big gaps in the vertical alignment of our core classes. Ongoing communication to thank you for the community partnership and continue to have that as a focus area. One of the comments that came from that is folks still fear there's a little word of mouth about getting involved in the DLAC or some of the other committees, and how do we make that less word of mouth from who you know to all-inclusive invitations. Intake coordinator referral process, a lot of good feedback on that, as well as the communication that, hey, let's put some more tier 1 and tier 2 in our wellness program and not all about the one-on-one referrals and meeting with the counselor, which, you know, early timely intervention is the strongest intervention to provide. Strong appreciation from a lot of staff and students and community members of our gender identity board policy. So again, appreciate the support, but then also the communication that we still have work to do with this vulnerable population. And lastly, staff reports that it's difficult to find time to work with their peers with the Bell schedule. And we've spent lots of time debriefing that and trying to figure out how to do that. And the PL Planning Committee has created a really strong plan moving into next year about ways to offer creative ways of collaboration for our staff with the Bell schedule that we're going to continue on into the 22-23 school year. So some really positive comments, as well as some really positive comments about areas to continue to work in, and appreciate all of the feedback from our staff, students, and community members. So lastly, to finish this up, looking ahead into next year, we're going to keep going strong. I feel the energy and the inspiration of what we've seen this year, which has been a really hard year, coming back with a lot of the challenges and the ongoing issues. And still, we stayed strong and on the course and didn't drop our focus in what we're all about. We're all about the students. We're all about supporting their academic excellence. And in order to do that, we need to have those partnerships. Well, students are students that are able to access their education, and we set that as a priority, and then knowing that we need to support our staff to be able to support their students. And so we'll continue on this journey into next year And I want to remind everybody that this is a first reading. This is published on our website. I will tell you, every time I read this, I find a typo. So every time I make a little change, I'll just re-upload the latest version and let you know. But I even just a moment ago saw some capitalizations where I was like, oh, I missed that one again. So it is a first reading, and I'll come back on June 23rd. So we have 2 weeks or a week and a half between now and then for public comment or for board comment. Thank you.
Do people have questions before I open the public hearing?
No, I just, first of all, there's a lot of energy in this document, and when I'm reading it, I'm just so excited about what we're offering the students and how we're focusing on what the needs are. And there's 2 in here that I think are referenced in an email to you that I'm looking forward to seeing, and that's the created a draft handbook on the support services and processes, including the 501. I mean, I'd like to see that. I don't know when that would be, but maybe sometime in the fall or
Yeah,
something like that.
I'd be happy. So what we
Or
have
just
right
a
now
draft, yeah.
is a draft that talks about the SAT and the the student academic, which is like a tier 1, and then SST, the tier 3. And working with SCOE and MTSS, they're encouraging that we merge the 2. So now we're going a little bit back to the drawing board.
And that's fine. And then the other one is, of course, the new attendance program that you referenced in the document. That I think that we've been working on that for a few years, and I think that it's kind of important that we actually get something finalized on it. So those are just 2 things that really stood out to me when I was looking at the new and upcoming handbooks and drafts that you mentioned.
And I wrote back to you, but I just want to
Yeah,
say
you
this
did.
publicly as well, and give credit to Perla, who's leading an attendance team. And they're looking at the data, they're looking at our policy, they're looking at our most at-risk chronically absent students. They're working with our county office to create not just a policy, but a solid plan that has the different interventions in it. And so I appreciate you bringing that up, and I'm glad Perla's here so I can give a shout out to her and her work with that team she put together.
Yeah, and taking into you know, the lessons learned we've learned with Zoom and option B and stuff like that. Whatever you do, I just am interested in seeing something actually formalized, because I know that that's been something we've been working on for years, but I've never actually seen the document.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very thoughtful. Thank you.
So, yeah, I have a couple of questions. So, if you I gotta refer to this document here. So, page 35 of that document. This is on the the second row, percent of students suspended as measured on the California School Board dashboard, the school dashboard.
Yeah, it is. It's page 35. You're right.
So, we had discussed this last time, I believe, where this, and I thought we were going to relook at how we're doing this. So one is on the baseline, we're looking at of the total suspensions, how do we want, the makeup, right, of what it needs to be. Like you have, so on the baseline, you're saying 60% of all suspensions are Latinx, 9% are Asian, and then 25% are white students. Yet in the outcomes, you're not measuring of the total suspensions, right? You're just saying 2.4%. So we have total of our population, 2.4% where there were suspensions, and so 5.7% of the Latinx students were suspended, right?
Yep.
And 1% of the Asian students are suspended, 0.9%, right? Those are the numbers. So I think that's one, is that I think there's a disparity in terms of what you're looking to achieve on the outcome and what you're measuring, right? So there's a difference there.
Debbie, I think this is one of the
This is what I
questions that you.
because I know that we had this discussion
Yeah.
at a meeting earlier, and I'm kind of thinking that maybe we could you could meet with her afterwards, because I think that meeting had several things that you had talked about with that, right? I don't know.
Yeah,
however you want to
I think,
handle it.
well, I think one of the things that we had talked about is that I don't know whether it's just, I don't know what we're getting at with the percentages, because I don't like, to be quite honest, the having desired outcome of 25%, actually specifically
Yeah.
stating out what the percentage of a certain race needs to be, I don't think is the kind of outcome we want to show here.
So there's 2 pieces to this that I'd love to hear your thoughts on. One is what's missing is the overall percentage going down. But then the second piece is showing proportionality, which doesn't feel good that we're, showing everybody is equally getting suspended. But where the needle is working to be moved is that we are disproportionate in who's getting suspended. And so what is the work that we're doing around that? And how are we showing that it's not a certain group that is.
So is there a requirement of what it needs to be that a state is mandating in terms of what that proportionality needs to be with all the different races and demographics? Is that stated somewhere?
I have to look that up. I do not believe.
I would be very surprised.
Yeah, I don't
if
believe.
they stated that way.
I don't believe that it's a quantitative number.
Right. I'd be very, yeah, I would be very surprised.
But I do think just overall looking, we can see that we're disproportionate. And how do we become more proportionate? Right?
Well, and I think we have to be careful, right, by stating that, because I don't think that's necessarily the outcome you're looking at. I mean, let's say we only have one suspension, and it's it's going to be a Latinx student. So 100% of our suspensions are you saying, oh well, we failed? I mean, that's I don't think that would be that would be right. So I think we either. I don't know if this is coming out of some state requirement that I'd like to know what either, and then we need to understand what that is.
Mm-hmm.
But if this is something that we're putting ourselves, we're creating this,
Mm-hmm.
then we can create anything we want here. And either we put a different number there that's saying basically we know what the numbers are that we're tracking and we've been tracking it. And then we can say that goal is to basically keep the numbers, a finite number for each demographic, we want it to be below a certain number if that's what it is.
So yeah, thank you for that. It's not a state requirement. However, I might even say it's somewhat encouraged by the state that you look at all aspects of your metrics. That includes attendance, that includes GPA, that includes discipline. So if it was not in here, we wouldn't necessarily get dinged or it wouldn't be bounced back to us. But it is a metrics of just student connectedness, student safety, student, engagement in activities.
I guess what I'm hearing you say, and I'm completely agreeing with, is the goal here is to reduce suspensions. Yes, it's to fix disproportionality also, and to take a look at that lens, but it's also to simply reduce suspensions. And that's the piece that doesn't feel right, because at first glance, it looks like we want to increase suspensions for our Asian students. And so, I think that's the piece that I definitely want to capture, right? The overall goal is we want to decrease the suspensions period, right? We want to not have these. So to your point, whatever the base number is, we want it to be 50% of that next year, or we want it to be 25% the year after. I don't know if there's a different way to phrase it in the report.
Yeah, so I noted that we need to include an overall total and how we're decreasing the total. Suggestions on the disproportionality piece?
I have a suggestion.
Mhm.
I think we need to look at it as we would at the achievement gap. So if you have students that are achieving at a high level, you wouldn't, in order to gain proportionality, lower their achievement to get to the number you want. And I agree 100% with Terry that suspension is such an indicator of so many other things. So we have to look at it, but we will look at it in context as you're describing. But when we look at the specifics here, I think we have work to do to go back and talk about how do we look at it differently as we would at the achievement gap. So students it's not like you still will have the same number and you're just redistributing. It's really that you're seeing a decrease more profoundly with one group than the other, because we need to target them and make sure that their suspension rate goes down even more. But also we want the others to go down to zero. So it's really just rethinking it. So I think that's a great conversation that we can have when we bring it back for the second reading.
And the second one is on page 42. This is just a curious understanding for me on that first. I'll wait a second. Okay.
Yep.
On the first row. So how did we come up with 8.6? I know it's below the district of 8.8. Is that just it? Or I'm just curious where that 8.6% came from.
So that was in collaboration of, let me think how we did this last year. So that was in collaboration with where we're at and the number of students that made up the 9.6 and dropping that, I believe, by like a 0.5 or a 0.4 each year. And that would drop us to an 8.6. So there's a little bit of calculation that the team went around that, yeah. And I will say, year one, that was the pandemic. And just knowing the attendance this year as we're back in person, it'll be a different shift from a 4.9. So some of the year one, which was last year's data, I do think it's a little hard to use that as a strong indicator of movement. A lot of variables that went into that data.
I guess we never tracked this data before. We don't have any past data to go by.
We
But that 9.6 is that 9.6 the average of many years?
no, there has been actually somewhat of it has been a little bit stable, but like a lot of our data where we're either decreasing in the right direction or we're increasing in the right direction. With our attendance, we were doing the same as well. So a little bit of fluctuation. We do track that data more than just, this isn't the first time that we've looked at chronic absenteeism.
So 10%. And just the chronic, this is when we say 9.2 or 10%, are these what's the word? Basically, there's a word for it. Only counted one per student. So like even if it's a multiple student, I mean, if it's a student that does multiple chronic absence, it's these are unduplicated numbers.
That's correct.
So 10% of our population
Of our 4,500.
4,500, right, are chronically absent.
Yep.
And chronically defined as,
That seems really high. I thought we had like an average daily attendance of 95, 96%.
it's the chronic part.
It's the chronic part that gets in there? Okay. Okay.
Both are true.
So what is the definition in this context of chronic?
Is it, oh man, I knew you were gonna ask that. I think it's missing more than
Sorry.
20%. I'd have to Google that real fast.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
all
it's missing more than 20%
I'll
of
look
the
it up
school.
later myself.
Right. Excused.
I actually would say a fair percentage of this chronic absenteeism is called in as illness, mental health, other. It's not truancy. Yeah.
Okay.
And it doesn't, and it's absent meaning they're absent for the full day, or not just missing, or is it just missing one period?
Chronic absenteeism is full day absences.
Full day.
Yep.
But it may, excused or unexcused.
It's part of that, but it's anything, it's a medical or mental health, they have to say what.
Right.
It's everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Tons and tons and
Yep,
tons of work.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry.
Yeah, I really appreciate all the effort. Well, we all appreciate all the effort that's gone into it and all the statistics, even if we don't agree with absolutely every one of them, that had to be calculated and so on to create this data.
Well, thank you
This
for the
report from
questions.
data.
And you are part of that educational partnership. And so I always appreciate your partnership to make sure that our work is strong and in the right direction. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to do that in a minute. The board have anything else to say before so this was the first reading and we are required to have a public hearing on this. So I will open the public hearing on the topic of the 22-23 LCAP plan. And it will remain open until the 23rd when we have our next meeting, and we close it, have our second meeting and vote on it. Okay. Do you need a time that I opened it or anything? No? All right, we did. 8:25. All right. So next, we will do the same situation with the budget. So Mike, take it away on the budget.
Give us a condensed version.
You got it.
Yeah, I was hoping,
I know, yeah.
I was thinking.
It's a balanced budget, the end. Mic drop.
I was thinking you were gonna read the whole thing out loud. Keep us here until 4 AM.
We're good.
Yeah. Nothing else going on right now. What else? I will be brief. Intentionally, budget follows LCAP. LCAP is our programs and budget supports that drives it. And yes, because was it just last week, before anyway, kind of high level overview of budget stuff. You've seen most of this. The guidelines reflect the educational program is prime. It includes, it's one of our district goals to maintain fiscal stability. Here's the budget overview, very, very high level. 126.5 million coming in, 125.7 being spent. We're transferring money out to OPEB, other post-employment benefits, but not the cafeteria fund. So a small increase in the fund balance that's unrestricted and restricted bundled together. So like I said, it's a balanced budget, which we always want to present, and it indicates we're in strong financial shape. Some of the highlights, and I did show this previously, although secured property tax growth is 8.5%, we do have revenue sources that are fixed and stay flat, and we do have revenue sources like one-time state money that drop off the table. And so total revenue growth is actually only 3.3%. So it's just important. We hear a lot about property taxes, and that's the driver of our budget to this part, but another important number is total revenue growth year to year is less than that. The other numbers I think we've shared before, we do get some state aid that stayed flat for about last 10 years. Thank you, MVLA Foundation, and now it's money from the Shoreline Education Enhancement Reserve. So that's all included in the budget. The highlights on the expenditure side is stuff we're all familiar with. People drive the budget, 84% of the cost. I mentioned the average salary last time. Pension costs are large. Our reserve levels, we continue to make progress towards this. We, of course, meet the required minimum. We are above and beyond what we need for the other post-employment benefits. And we continue to try and attack and reach that goal of a 2-month operating expense. So on one hand, we're not there. On the other hand, it is a pretty sizable, healthy reserve. And so that is a nice reserve, as we should we have dire, unpredicted events. That's why one has a reserve. So that's just an update on that. This story on enrollment. We're ticking up, at least that's the estimates as we get looking at students who are enrolled in classes from current year to next year. We will wait and see, and we measure that in October to measure what that enrollment truly is. That is a slight uptick from where we were this year, but again, we're in the midst of a pandemic. So a lot of those projections and reality we're still sorting through and seeing the impacts of that. But of course, that drives staffing, as we all know. So we continue to right size the staffing needed for our classrooms and our offices and our custodians and all the aspects of the district. The multi-year projection, of course, we're required to look 3 years out, current or the next year and the following 2. All of them show a balanced budget surplus. The middle year, 23-24, includes that 5% salary increase that we know of. So you do see a slight increase in that year. That final year, the out year, has a much larger increase, but it assumes salaries are flat, and we will get there. When we get there, that number probably will change, but those are negotiations down the road. So that's what impacts that number significantly. But you can see revenue continues to grow, expenditures continue to grow with it. The assumptions behind it are here before you. I shared them last time. Property tax drives the revenue growth. STRS and PERS, we mentioned, nothing new there. We'll continue to monitor enrollment projection and maybe even update that as we talked about last time. And we'll close the books this summer. We'll do the unaudited actuals for the current year. That will become the beginning balances for next year's budget. We'll come back to you, presented first interim in December. where we finalize all the staffing, include that. We get the actual numbers from the controller's office and assessor's office in the county with what actual tax collections are. I will say that 8.5 projection for next year is looking very strong. The gross assessed value growth for June 1st from a year ago was 8.1. So we have all of June left. So very confident behind that number of 8.5. Next year it could be even slightly higher. This is just your annual cheat sheet on how to read the standardized accounting code structure forms. And amazing staff, and thanks to all, you see them here. They do a lot of great work behind the scenes. We will get you the all fund spreadsheet. I know that's always an item that's liked. The movement of the board date and whatnot will move things up a little bit, but we'll have that for you long before we go to approve this June 23rd.
You beat me to asking you that about.
I knew it was coming, so I was thinking like, oh, we didn't have it this time, a short week, Memorial Day. But I already put a reminder on my calendar tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I have one question that I don't know whether it's best directed to you or to Dr. Meyer, but when you look at these enrollment things, a classroom, I mean, an FTE, you need an FTE for every 30 more students, or how, in terms of a teacher, or no?
Lower, our ratio
It's
is
about-
lower due to the kind of variety of class. So that is the ratio that we use, 30.
What do you use?
Well, I hesitate to give you a canned answer because the number gets very skewed if you average across all the types of classes. But if you do, right now it turns out to be about 19 to 1. If I remember in the LCAP.
That includes special ed.
29, right?
Yeah, see,
Yeah,
it
that-
says 29.
But it said 29, but we also have foundation money that supplements downside class enrollment. And we
Yeah,
have a lot of
freshman
other
classes,
money
algebra.
play.
Yeah, I know, but I mean,
And that includes special education as well, which really pulls that average down
big
Yeah.
time.
quite a bit, yeah.
The-
So the
So it
29,
depends on
I
who they
think of
are.
29 versus 30. Yeah.
But every, class size maximum is in the DTA contract.
I know.
And we don't even typically have as many students as the maximum. We try to go towards the more ideal and to be, so we tend to get a little lower.
Yeah, okay.
And I would just add for budgeting purposes, I mean, Leia's answer is spot on, and it all depends on it. Like if they're all ELD students, that's going to be a slightly different ratio.
Well, obviously, yeah.
But around 25, when we look at plugging in for budget projections, because it's a target of 29 to 1 in a general ed classroom, but kids on average take 6 classes, but a teacher only teaches 5. So that's kind of the rough math behind what we're doing in the budget department. You need 1 teacher, plus 0.2 to teach 29 kids for 6 periods.
And I'm still looking to the day when Mountain View can zoom into a class at Los Altos and do the back end. I've been saying this for 10 years, so go for it, come on.
We have the technology nowadays. We know how to do this. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm on board with that comment. Love to see some stuff like that. So is there any other comments by the board before I open the public? So this is going to work the same way. I'm going to open the public hearing and it will close again on the 23rd. I'm opening the public hearing on the MVLA district budget for 22-23 at 8:35. All right, done. All right, now move on to a pleasant comment that I'm going to make is that we have this action item is addendum to the superintendent's employment contract. So I will state that the superintendent has received a positive evaluation from the board and thus will have her contract renewed for another year, and it's a 3-year contract. So it currently ends on June 30th, 2023. 24, and we are extending it by 1 year to June 30th, 2025. And also, a couple of the addendums recently have had payout for extra vacation days, but Dr. Meyer says that she had used more of them than she has during the heat of COVID or the fever of COVID. And so she can accommodate using the rest of her vacation with the already included in her contract that she may carry over a few. So she doesn't have any more than she would be able to carry over anyway. So we don't need to do that part. So that's it. I would entertain a motion to approve the new addendum to the superintendent's agreement.
So moved, happily.
All right, Fiona, and seconded by Debbie. There's no more discussion, I would think. But if you have more, please say so. Otherwise, all those in favor of approving the new addendum to the superintendent's agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Dr. Meyer, you're stuck with us for another year.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to board operations. Review of calendar events. Yeah. In our gowns, we're wearing gowns for this. Yes. All right. We're on the last slide to the end of the school year.
Yes.
All right. Any other dates you want to mention, Dr. Meyer?
Not at this time.
Okay. Is there any communications or correspondence you need to state?
I would like to share, I will pass this around for the board. This is a compilation of the writing of the Mid-Penn Peninsula, which was led by Tomo Chin.
Yeah.
And he also has been helping us with photography, but you will love the articles within this. And it is an award-winning independent student journalism serving Los Altos, Mountain View, and Palo Alto. So you can look at this. He has pictures and the articles of the entire team. So
Did you subscribe to get it, or how'd you get that?
it was brought to me by the editor himself.
Oh, that's great.
Cool.
We're very
wow.
excited. So we'll keep a
Yes.
copy. You
Yeah.
can check
Yeah,
it out.
we'll
But it's
have it.
really good stuff. You
Yeah.
did an excellent job.
This is just another example of
The
how
first print copy.
accomplished our students are and how proud of them we are
Yeah, 'cause it's
that
all
they
been
are that
online.
accomplished.
Yeah.
So,
That's amazing. That's great.
It's great. You'll love it.
Is it
Great.
online, do you know?
Well, it's normally an online.
It's normally online, and that's just
Yeah.
the compilation of all of the online articles.
and
Oh, they're going to order more. So this is
Okay,
this is
okay.
the first edition.
all right.
Yeah, could you order us
Okay,
one?
yeah.
Have one? Oh, yeah, we need
Yeah,
a,
we
like
need
a signed copy.
We
We're very
We
demanding.
will arrange for that. I was going to say work. It has
Ooh.
peanut butter cookies. Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
Awesome.
But it's excellent work.
Yeah, that's a collaboration with some students like Gunn and Hallie. I mean, it's amazing.
Mountain View
Yeah.
and Los
Yeah.
Altos and Gun.
All right. Do we have any board suggestions for future board meetings or reports at this time?
No.
No. The date and time and place of the next meeting will be Thursday, June 23rd at 12:30. It will be preceded by a lunch at noon in Alta Vista. Are we still having it in Alta Vista? At Alta Vista. Multi. Okay. We will not have 14 or 15 since we didn't have any closed session to resume. And so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Sanjay, second, please.
A second.
Second by Debbie. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's a wrap at 8:40.
All right. It's a wrap.